Okay, in the last video we have learned how to create double linked list. Now in this video we will look at how to insert a new node to the double linked list. As we had in single linked list, here again we have three cases. So we can insert a node at the beginning of double linked list, we can insert a node at a specified location in the double linked list, and we can insert a node at the end of double linked list. So these are the three different cases we need to deal with. So let's get started by adding a node at the beginning of double linked list. Now in this case we are going to add a node after the head reference. So now after addition, node 1 will be the second node, so new node will be the first node in our double linked list. Now to do so, the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to create empty node. So when we are creating empty node, the physical location of empty node, let's say in our case, is 002. Now the second step is we are going to assign a value to this new node over here. Now let's say in our case we are assigning 10 to this new node over here. Now then we are going to update the next reference of this new node to point to first node over here, because the first node is going to become the second node, so we are inserting this node at the beginning of double linked list, so we need to update the next reference of this new node to point to node 1 over here. Now the next step is we are going to update the previous reference of new node over here. Now our double linked list is like this. So if we look at the first node over here, we see that previous reference of first node is always null. So this means that if we are inserting a node at the beginning of double linked list, we have to set the previous reference of this new node to null. So we are going to update the previous reference of this node to null. Then the next step is we need to update the next reference of this new node. So if we are inserting this one at the beginning of double linked list, the next reference has to point to this new node over here. So this new node is going to become the second node, so that's why we have to update the next reference to point to this node 1 over here. Now in this case node 1's physical location is 001, so we are going to update the next reference of new node 001. And by doing so we are creating a link between new node and node 1 over here. Now the next step is when we are adding new node over here, this node 1 becomes the second node in our double linked list, so this means that it has to point back to the first node over here. So new node is going to become the first node, so we have to update the previous reference of node 1 to point to this new node over here. Now the physical location of this new node is 002, so we are going to update the previous reference of node 1 to point to this new node over here. So as you see, if you update it to 001, it's creating a link between node 1 and new node over here. So with this way we can go from new node to node 1 and from node 1 to new node over here. So as we mentioned before, in case of double linked list, we should have both ways. So we can go from one node to another node and another node to backward to this node over here. Now finally the last step is we know that in case of all types of linked list, head has to point to the first node. Now in this case you see that head points to the node 1 over here, so we have to change it to point to new node over here. So in this case, if we update the head reference to 002, which is the physical location of new node, it's going to create a link between head and new node, and a link between head and node 1 gets destroyed. Now with this, we have successfully inserted an element at the beginning of double linked list. Then we are continuing to the next case, in which we are inserting an element at specified location of linked list. So here also the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to create an empty node. Now when we are creating this new node over here, you see that the physical location of this node is 555. Now the next step is we need to assign a value to this node, new node. So let's say in our case we are assigning 20 to this new node over here. Then in this case I want to insert this node between node 2 and node 3. So we have to start from the node 1 and loop through all nodes until we reach the node 2. So we know that we want to insert it after node 2 and before node 3. So we are going to loop through this double linked list until we reach the node 2. So when we reach node 2, we are going to stop over here. Now the next step is we are going to update the next reference of this new node to point to node 3 over here. Now we know that the physical location of node 3 is 222. So if I update the 222 to the next reference of this new node, it's going to create a link between new node to node 3. Now the next step is we are going to update the previous reference of this new node. So we know that if we are inserting this node after node 2, so this means that previous node before new node is going to be node 2. So this means that we have to update the previous reference to the physical location of this node 2 over here. Now we know that physical location of node 2 is 111, so we are going to update the previous reference of new node to 111. So this will create backlink from new node to node 2 over here. Now the next step is we are going to create a link between node 2 and new node. So we know that new node's physical location is 555, so we are going to update the node 2's next reference to 555, and this will create a link between node 2 and new node over here. Now when we are doing so, a link between node 2 to node 3 gets destroyed. Yeah, you see that the link is disappeared over here. Now finally, we need to create backward link from node 3 to new node. So now you see that node 3 points to the node 2. So we have to change this link to point to the new node. So this means that we are going to update the previous reference of node 3 to the physical location of new node. Now we know that the physical location of new node is 555, so we are going to set the previous reference of node 3 to 555. So by doing so, a backward link from node 3 to new node is created, and the link between node 3 and node 2 gets destroyed. Now with this, we have successfully inserted a node at the specified location of double linked list. So basically what we are doing over here is we are finding the specified location, then we are updating the next reference of current node and the previous references of the next node, and similarly updating the previous and next references of new node over here. So by completing these operations, we have successfully inserted an element at the specified location of double linked list. Now the last case is we want to insert an element at the end of double linked list. Now here also the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to create an empty node. Now after creating an empty node, we are going to assign a value to it. So let's say in this case we have assigned 20, and the physical location of this newly created node is 444. Now the next step is we know that in case of double linked list, the next reference of last node is null. So we know that as you see in this double linked list, the last node's next reference points to null. So that's why if we are inserting a new node at the end of double linked list, the first thing that we should do, we need to set the next reference to null. So I'm going to update it to null. Then we are going to create backward link between new node and this last node over here, because this last node is not going to be a last node anymore, because this new node will be the last node. So this means that this new node has to point to the node 4 over here. So we know that node 4's physical location is 333. So this means that if I update 333 to the new node's next previous reference, it's going to create a link between new node and node 4 over here. Then similarly, we have to update the next reference of node 4 to point to this new node over here. So we know that this new node's physical location is 444, so we are going to set next reference of node 4 444. So with this, a link between node 4 and new node is created. Now finally, we know that in any type of linked list, tail has to point to last node. Now you see that it's not pointing to last node. Before node 4 was last point, it was pointing to it. So now if we insert a new node at the end of double linked list, we have to update the tail reference to point to this new node over here. Now as we said before, physical location of this new node is 444, so we are going to update the tail to 444, and this will create a link between tail and this new node over here. Now at the same time, when we are updating tail to 444, a link between tail and node 4 gets destroyed. Now with this, we have successfully inserted an element at the end of double linked list. Now here also, the steps are very simple. All we have to do, we have to update the new node's next reference to null and previous reference to point to the last node in the double linked list, and double linked list last node has to point to this node, and then we have to change tail reference to point to this newly created node over here. Now with these steps, we are able to insert a new node at the end of double linked list. Now in this lecture, I have explained you 3 different cases of the insertion of a node in the double linked list. So we have learned how can we insert a node at the beginning of double linked list, at the specified location in the double linked list, and at the end of double linked list. Now based on these 3 different cases, let's see how the algorithm of insertion looks like in the next lecture. So see you in the next lecture.